Authorities have just taken over this investigation of Alfred Wright's death.
That is because his family says state and local authorities are sweeping it under the rug.
Our Rux Russell has the story of another high-profile death in the small town of Jasper.
To know him was to love him.
Alfred Wright was a husband, a father, and a son.
You would have had to know him to know his character, his personality.
He and I were actually in the second grade together.
Lauren Wright had no way of knowing back then that the two would one day marry. But what no one could anticipate were the events that would eventually thrust Wright, his family, and the small city of Jasper into the national spotlight.
I believe he was murdered, and only God from heaven would have to come down and tell me that he wasn't murdered.
The accounts of what took place last November have been well documented. Wright, a physical therapist, was on his way to treat a patient when his truck broke down near this convenience store and he called his wife for help.
He was having truck problems and that someone probably needed to go ahead and come get him.
He was waiting on us to pick him up.
But within minutes, Wright's wife called him back.
And that's when I heard the heavy breathing, the respiratory, what I call respiratory distress of some kind. It was just very heavy breathing, and I just sensed the urgency immediately that something wasn't right.
When Wright's parents showed up, they only saw his parked truck, but the 28-year-old was missing. The Sabine County Sheriff's Office conducted a search. After 4 days, it was called off. The family questions how hard deputies looked. But those closest to Wright continued to comb through the nearby woods for the next 2.5 weeks. Wright's friends and family members located his body on a day not too unlike this. It was cold and wet. The body found lying face down in some thick woods about 1.5 miles from where I'm standing. An initial official autopsy ordered by the county attributed the death to lethal amounts of meth, cocaine, and amphetamines found in his system. But the family sent the remains to Houston for a second autopsy, which found the body was missing an ear, the tongue, and had a throat that appeared to have been slashed. And they insist Wright would never have abused drugs.
I know my husband was killed by somebody.
No question in your mind.
No question in my mind.
No question, some say, in part because of what happened here before, in 1998, when 3 white men in a pickup truck dragged a black man to his death.
We found the body. Sheriff had never asked us any questions. Texas Rangers hadn't asked us any questions. We found the body.
I think we all question the motives, definitely. You know, do they know something that we don't know? Are they trying to cover it up for someone? I mean, we don't know.
This week, the U.S. Justice Department moved to take over the investigation. Calls to the sheriff and the Texas Rangers office were not returned.
None of us will stop until we find out who did it and why they did it, and see that that justice is served.
Into the fact where the victim is now the perpetrator and the perpetrator is now the victim. And that just drives me crazy. Good afternoon, I'm Nat Wood. Welcome to 30 Frames a Second. We rolled that clip of Alfred Wright, who has been from the city of Jasper. He was found dead, discovered dead in the city of Jasper, and there's a whole lot of stuff surrounding that case. This is going to be a power-packed episode today. It is my good fortune to have back on 30 Frames a Second Gwen Goodwin, and she's going to update us on some things that are going on with her and the Melissa Mark Viverito situation. But before we start that, we have the family of Alfred Wright, who was quite probably murdered in Jasper, Texas. And we're going to put him on the phone. He's calling from Jasper, Texas, and have him update us on what's going on in Jasper, Texas around that case. So whenever you guys are ready, you can put that call through. Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Wright? Yeah, hi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You're on air now. Update us on what specifically happened with your son. Where is that going? I believe the feds are becoming involved in that case. Give us the status on that case. What's happening? It must be awful.
Yes, it is also, but we're very grateful that God has given us favor in seemingly making a headway into uncovering injustice, and hopefully justice is going to prevail. But I would like to say, first of all, we're very thankful for you for giving us the opportunity to have a voice, not only for justice for our son, but for others who might be in the same predicament that we found ourselves in. First of all, you said that he was found in Jasper. No, he is from Jasper. He was actually not in Jasper County. He was a home health physical therapist working about 35 to 40 miles to the north of Jasper County in Sabine County. And his truck broke down at a packing store. He was on his way to see another patient. We received a call from his wife. He had a sick child, so she should not go, so she asked us to go pick him up. And within 1 hour, we was there, and when we arrived, there was no sign of him. Not going to go through all the details, but at this point, law enforcement done a very poor job of searching for him. After 4 days, they called off the search that they did do. The search was only done in one direction with other people involved. They said that they searched the area in which he was found, but we have no true account of that. On the 18th day, myself along with family and friends, a total of 17 of us, went on a search, and we found my son about 200 yards from where trained dogs had been brought in from two prison systems, two separate prison units to search for him. And there was no evidence from the dogs that he was in the area that they found him in. And so there's been various counts of...
Yeah, take your time. We hear you. Are you still there? Yeah.
And we can say that it was told at once that the Texas Rangers was involved. But Texas Rangers is kind of like the FBI in Texas, but we also found out that the sheriff of Sabine County and the local area Texas Rangers working this division had been had a working relationship when they were DPS officers a few years ago, and the Texas Ranger was actually the boss of the sheriff. Therefore, they was tied at the hip beforehand. And it's been so many suspicious and strange things done by even the Texas Rangers, even and so that we've never been questioned by the Texas Rangers about how we found our son, this and that. And I've always wondered why we haven't been asked questions. But I've come to the conclusion myself, and I think many other people who would draw the same conclusion, that when you already know the answers, you don't need to ask any questions. And they had given us a scenario of him having the characteristics of being on illegal drugs. My son was not a drug user. He was a professional person. If he'd have been drug tested, he'd have lost his job and his license as a physical therapist, so he would not take that chance. He took pride in working and taking care of his family. He had was married and had 2 boys with his wife, and one from just a college relationship before he ever was married. Very prompt, intelligent, charismatic, and just an individual who all he did was encourage those who were there in his presence. But we are at the point right now where after 2 meetings with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of the 18th Congressional District in Houston, who is a senior seniority in Washington, he has really pushed to have the Justice Department come in, and as of last week, it has been confirmed that the Justice Department has come in to take over the investigation. And we were told at one time that the Texas Rangers had came in and the FBI had come in, but again, after about a month, we hadn't had any questions asked, and so we figured that was just a smoke screen to hopefully let time slip by and nothing be done. But we are at the point now where I even received a call this morning from someone in that capacity of the Justice Department, and hopefully we will move towards justice from this point on. But as old folks said from Mississippi, where I was raised, that time will fail.
All right, now I want to see if we can make a couple of things perfectly clear. When the search was initially done, they brought in dogs from 2 prisons, and they searched for 4 days, called off the search because they could not find your son, and it was you who found your son after the search was called off. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
Ma'am. You're correct.
They subsequently did an autopsy, and they listed the cause of death as drug overdose. However, they never mentioned the fact that your son had his throat slit, one of his ears missing, and his tongue cut out, or is that correct?
And his eyes were punctured.
And his eyes were punctured.
Oh my God. Sounds satanic.
Wow.
Yes, they did not mention that. And before I go into the autopsy, I want you to know that from the first day of the search, the sheriff of Savannah County came to me voluntarily and said this clearly is seems that the characteristics of related drugs is exemplified here because I am a 13-year recovering meth addict. On the second day of the search, the assistant fire chief of the same city came and said I was a meth user, and I was found. I was naked under the bridge in Houston for 2 days, and after that clear days, I didn't want to be found. And your son probably be out in these woods for a couple of weeks or so, and it's a clear indication that he was on drugs. Now, the other thing that connects up to that, after our 18 days, the Texas Ranger, when we found the body, he was heard over telling somebody that evening when he came in that this is clearly a drug case. Needless to say, the body was still out there, hadn't had an autopsy, hadn't had toxicology done, but the Texas Ranger, who is friends with the sheriff, said clearly this is a drug case. Now you have to understand about the autopsy. I was raised up in Mississippi. I was very close connected to Freedom Summer. I was 11 years old. My father had reason in the few months coming up to Freedom Summer that the civil rights workers were going to investigate Mount Zion Methodist Church. My father was a Methodist pastor, and he pastored that church just a few months before it was burnt down. And he had asked his superiors to move him because I remember myself very vividly that we would be leaving there many Sunday evenings late, and my father always visitors shed in and sick people, and we would be kicked at. They would ride his bumper, brighten our lights, and at that time my father didn't tell me about it, but later I found out that it was the KKK picking at him because they were targeting him because the church was being used as a resource for the CORE coalition, which is the coalition that the 3 civil rights workers, Swanson, Goodman, and Cheney, was a part of, which stands for Congress of Racial Equality. Okay? Now, you have to understand, when they killed those civil rights workers, and they put them under the dam, and this was done by Neshoba County, Mississippi law law enforcement and working in hand with the Ku Klux Klan. They arrested them, put them in jail for 5 hours, let them go, and they ambushed them, killed them, and put them on their dam. On the autopsy, when they found them, the autopsy said that they was all shot, but there was no sign of blunt force trauma. Through the opposition of the FBI and law enforcement, the family and others had a second autopsy done by a forensic pathologist out of New York. This is what he stated, that never in his career had he saw bones of a 25-year-old, and this is Taney, the black man. Never in his life, in his career, had he saw bones so severely shattered unless it was from a high-speed accident or a plane crash. This young man's body was beat to a pulp. But the first autopsy said that he was shot, but there was no blunt force trauma. Now, fast forward to my son. It was said that it was inconclusive, and there was no sign of foul play. We did the autopsy of the second autopsy, and they would not release any information from the first autopsy to the second forensic pathology. So we took pictures ourselves, unbeknownst to them, before they got there. So thank God we were able to relate them to her. But in her finding, she's not been able to conclude it because, and hopefully the Justice Department will bring about the opportunity for her to view all the coverage of the first autopsy. But with her limited capacity, she said that there is signs of homicidal violence. And of course, tongue cut out, one ear missing, eyes punctured, throat sliced. But as it's amazing, the devil don't use no new tricks when the one that he's been using keep working. They were following the pattern even of the law enforcement in 1964 and 65 in Mississippi. This is why I was led to get a second autopsy, because I seriously remember what happened then, and it never thought that it would happen to me in 2014 in the 21st century, that hatred and a desire for someone to take away the life of a young man who has struggled to be an access to society, not a liability in society, to keep him from being an example to other little black boys who need hope, other little black girls who need hope, other minorities who need hope, and snatched it away from him. But I thank God for you. I thank God for all of those who come together collectively in these United States of America, the home of the free and the home of the brave, that we may come together and voice the hurt and the pain and the voices of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X is crying out, justice, justice, because injustice anywhere, Sabine County, Jasper County, Mississippi, whatever it might be, there is justice everywhere.
Are you hoping, obviously the Justice Department will be investigating the circumstances of surrounding the death of your son, and who possibly cut his ears off and left him in the woods. But are you hoping that the Justice Department also investigates the law enforcement, the local law enforcement, to find out what was the breakdown and the cause of the shoddy work that they did in finding your son and ascertaining what specifically or who specifically killed him?
It cannot be an investigation without investigating Sabine County law and the local Texas Rangers. That could not even be an investigation. We received from just this week, the Justice Department, they was asked to turn over the evidence of his findings from the Texas Rangers. He said that he would not release it and he can do that because it's an ongoing investigation. But we know already that the only investigation that he's done, and this came from the street from reliable sources, only investigation that he has done is going around to drug dealers and trying to find out where my son bought drugs, or either fixing it up with some of the drug dealers to say that they might have sold him drugs, or he got drugs from them, so they could pad the scenario painting in the story that they had already laid out from the very first day of the search. And the Texas Rangers sealed it when they found his body by saying that it's obvious that it's a drug case. There's no connection. It cannot be an investigation from the Justice Department or any department without law enforcement being investigated.
I have one last question. Do you plan on any demonstrations or acts of civil disobedience until there is some sort of resolution to the case, or what's your next move?
There is a peaceful rally planned on this Saturday morning with the pastor who was on the church scene with me, Pastor Ray Lewis. In Jasper, and then there will be a follow-up rally at the Southeast County Law Enforcement Center at 2 o'clock on Saturday. We're looking for people from all over the nation to be there. We have keynote speakers such as we have coming in for the rally on Saturday morning, keynote speakers such as Les Brown, and we have even an individual from out of New York that's going to be in with us. We have quite a few individuals come from out of state. We're very grateful, and that's why we say we thank God for you all, that the word is out, and people are really coming together for a cause that will ensure maybe one day that it don't happen to their son, their grandson, their daughter, their granddaughter. Yes, ma'am.
Well, our prayers are with you and your family, and we're going to be watching this case closely and trying very much to bring as much attention to you and your family, and specifically what happened to your son. And I want to thank you so very, very much for calling in and making all too plain the circumstances of what happened to your son. Again, our prayers are with you, and we want to thank you so much for calling.
Thank you for your prayers, and likewise, we appreciate you, so we are grateful unto you for all that you've done, all that you're doing, and even for the hope of that which you're going to do to help us to bring this together. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.